Impeachment fallout, school choice, special session, add immigration to the mix. A lot is happening in Austin, or has already happened. So let's tap our expert, Scott Braddock, with the Quorum Report, who joins us. Scott, always appreciate your time and your insight, editor of the Quorum Report. Let's quickly talk about impeachment, because I know we've got a lot of things we want to talk about special session wise. What's the landscape like? Who are the winners and losers coming out of this impeachment of Ken Paxton?
The landscape is like, the movies about Mad Max. You have within the Republican Party, you've got the lieutenant governor and the speaker at each other's throats. And I've been checking with veterans of the Texas political scene, people who have been doing this for 35, 40 years. And when I ask, have you ever seen the speaker and the lieutenant governor, whoever they were, have you ever seen them angry with each other, at each other's throats this way? The answer is always no. This is about as bad as it's been as far as tensions between the House and Senate. As you know, often in Austin, it's not so much Republicans versus Democrats. It's usually the House versus the Senate, because we do have one party rule in Texas. So, all the leadership positions are taken up by Republicans. But the tensions now, it's hard for me to really, do justice to it. It is as bad as it has been. They're in no mood to cooperate with each other. And look, when it comes to school choice, which is something that the governor wants to talk about in the special session, they already weren't in the mood to talk about that. And now they're, even less likely to pass something, I would say.
Yeah, with both chambers not really willing to work together, it sounds like, after this tense impeachment process. The governor says he's going to call them back for a special session sometime next month. And the governor really doubling down on the fact that he wants to see school choice, using public dollars to pay for private education, that passed in this session. This is far from the first time that issue has been taken up in Austin. What's your read on what could be progress or lack thereof on this issue?
Well, as far as I can tell, Myra, there is no difference now between the vote count in the House at this time versus the way it looked earlier this year, back in January, February, March. And look, I think that the fact is that you have the governor trying to score a political win here when you have a serious policy discussion that needs to be had at the Capitol. The two things that are linked when it comes to education in the state, those things are public education funding and this school choice initiative that the governor continues to pursue. And it's important to remember that with a record budget surplus of more than $30 billion, teachers did not get a pay raise, and so that's still on the table, and public schools did not get any more funding. And there are a lot of Republicans and Democrats who want to see that happen, while there still is bipartisan opposition to school choice. And I think the dynamic really is, and if you talk to the teachers groups, if you talk to those who work in public education, they understand that if there is an increase right now in public education funding, but there is a school voucher program put in place, that increase in school funding would be one-time funding. But a school voucher program, which would take money out of public ed, that's a threat to their funding in perpetuity. And so I think that's the position they'll be working from. They're still going to, you're still going to see fierce opposition to taking money out of the public education system for what amounts to coupons for rich people to send their kids to school in Houston, Dallas, and Houston and San Antonio.
When you talk about this, though, are teachers the ones who lose out? Because it seems like the governor is not going to do anything without the school vouchers. The other side wants teacher pay raises, but it doesn't seem like the governor's going to let that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's important for Republicans to remember that unlike other states where, you have strong teachers unions in other places, especially in blue states, but in Texas, the teacher vote is a swing vote. There are a lot of teachers who vote for Republicans in Texas, but those teachers are not going to forget it. They started this school year with no increase in their pay when there is that record budget surplus. And they're not happy about that, and they may be open to voting for Democrats going forward.
So we have had a cut in property taxes affecting the main chunk of a public school district's budget. The idea of school vouchers, using those public funds that would ultimately take funding away from public schools. But historically on this issue, it hasn't been a Republican versus Democrat issue. This is largely rural Republicans that represent more rural areas have said this is not something that they want. Why is that? And have you seen anything change among that group?
With Republican voters in the state who are represented by those rural Republicans you're talking about, I'm aware of polling where folks are kind of schizophrenic about this. Among GOP primary voters in Texas, around 90% of them will say that they support some kind of school choice program. Of course, it's important to remember we do have lots of school choice in Texas already with charter schools and districts of choice, like the Houston School District, for example, where if you can get your kid to the campus, then they can go there. About 90% of Republicans are for that, but about 80%, 85 or so percent of Republicans are in favor of fully funding public education. They want both things. From a policy perspective, you can't do both. There's only so much money to go around. And when you start taking money away from public education to go toward a school voucher program, that's where the tension is. And there are 24 rural Republican members. In fact, Myra, during this was kind of under the radar during the session. There were rural Republican members who started wearing lapel pins that just had the number 24. Those are the 24 Republican members of the House who aren't just no votes on vouchers. They're hell no votes on vouchers. And I don't see that changing.
Let's talk about the timing of this special session. We know it's going to happen. We're just waiting for the governor to officially call it. When do you think it will happen? And what do you think about the latest development with the governor adding immigration to any special session call that he makes?
On the first part of the question, the chatter that I've heard is there will either be a special session starting on or around the 9th or the 10th of October, but no later than the 16th. You may have seen that just recently the governor said that he's calling for a day of prayer at Christian churches around the state on October 15th. That's a Sunday. So it would be probably around that time that he wants to start the special session and have that be the backdrop, at the day of prayer for school vouchers be the backdrop for it. As far as the immigration question, look, Republicans, including the governor, are always under pressure from their voters to do more when it comes to immigration and border security, by more than school vouchers, more than gun rights, more than anti-LGBTQ legislation or anything else, and more than pro-life legislation. The thing that animates Republican voters the most, and it's just not close, is border and immigration. And so they're under pressure to do something on that. When you poll Republican voters about this in the state, they will always say that the state government could spend more when it comes to border security. I think the voters want to see some sort of a policy change, although it's not clear what exactly the governor is going to ask the legislators to do. But I would say that if he can rack up a win when it comes to immigration, there may be less pressure on him and others to do anything about school vouchers, which again probably doesn't have the votes in the House.
All right, we wait to see a date of when all of this begins. Scott Braddock, editor of the Quorum Report, thanks so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Scott.
Keep up to date with all of San Antonio's top news, weather, and so much more by clicking the like and subscribe buttons below. And once again, thanks for watching KSAT.